Hello, welcome to I Can't Say It, day 338. It is halfway between 11 and 11:30, so that means I need to make this short so that we can go to bed. Because you can say from my yawning that I am tired. So I just spent the last hour or so going through genealogy research and putting all of my papers into some sort of order so that it's easy for me to find who they are and what they say and what might be missing so that I can add more information to it. Fun times indeed. It's funny how I have information for my dad's side of the family and some for my mom's, but not as much. So that means there's a lot more digging to go on, or perhaps, yeah, just a lot more digging to go on. We'll see what we can find. So the other day, there was a death in the radio family, Mr. Ray Taliaferro. He was a disc jockey for News Talk Radio 81 KGO back in the day when it was the number one talk radio station in the area. And you could pick up KGO, as far south as San Diego, and I presume as far north as Washington, and sometimes all the way into Nevada and Utah. And the reason, at least the way it was explained to me when I was in high school, was that the antennas sat in the bay, and that the salt in the bay somehow worked to help amplify the radio signal so that they were able to transmit further. I don't know if it's true. Excuse me. But that's how it was explained to me, why KGO's reach was so large. And well, Mr. Taliaferro was on from 1 in the morning until 5 in the morning. Bernie Ward was on before that. He was on, I think, from 10 to 1, and then there was Michael Krasny. He was on 10 to 1 later on. But Mr. Taliaferro was on at 1, and he was a joy to listen to. You didn't always have to agree with what he said, but it was always interesting to hear his opening monologues. The most memorable example that I can recall of his shows was a point that he had made about the Eucharist, in other words, Holy Communion, being tantamount to, or the same thing as, cannibalism. Because if you're eating the blood and the body of Jesus Christ, well, isn't that cannibalism? If that has just sort of stuck with me, all these years. If you want, you can listen to Mr. Taliaferro. There are some excerpts of his shows on YouTube, and I think he ought to give it a listen, just because. And he was a lover of the blues, and every once in a while he would just devote an hour to the blues, because that's what he could do. Sure, you could talk about all sorts of different things, and a lot of times the talking was politics, but you kind of get tired talking about politics again and again. And when you have loves of things like the blues, why not open up your radio station to other people that like listening to it, exposing them to different ideas. And so we don't know how he died. We do know that he was suffering dementia and that he died in the woods somewhere in Kentucky. But it's a sad day, because when I was living at home with my parents and then moving off, after college, if I was up at 1 o'clock in the morning, there I had on Ray Taliaferro, because it was just a joy to listen to. You got to hear another person's perspective, and he was, by all accounts, far left-wing, but I never saw him that way. I just saw him as a guy who had these opinions, which, sometimes made you think. And so I'm very sorry to hear about the passing of Ray Taliaferro. I am hoping that KGO will do something for him. You wonder if they have old broadcasts, saved somewhere so that we can, listen to them now. I don't really think they do. But ever since KGO was sold to Cumulus, it sort of went downhill. Cumulus, I think, being a right-wing station, owning a left-wing station just doesn't work. And so KGO has sort of floundered these last few years. So I don't even turn on KGO. The car I drive doesn't really get AM radio, but when I was growing up, AM radio was the way to go, because I would listen to KNBR, KFI down in Los Angeles, KGO, and I distinctly remember one time, because I had this huge antenna in my backyard, and I had picked up a radio station, and I didn't quite figure out where it was, but I knew that it was far enough away that when I saw my clock set 8 o'clock, they were reporting it as 9 o'clock. And I was like, damn, that was kind of neat. And I was like, well, I wonder where they are. And then eventually they got around to talking about locations where they were, and I was listening to a radio station in Casper, Wyoming. So I'm here in the Bay Area, and I got a radio, and I'm just pulling up Casper, Wyoming. So got to admit, very cool. I love that. Wow. You kind of miss those days. You guys got me thinking about what I can be doing. I did have a shortwave radio on my wish list at one time, but they run pretty expensive. But maybe it's time to find a less expensive shortwave radio and just start listening again. Fond days, fond memories. Okay, well, it is time for me to go to sleep. I'm going to head off to bed. I'm going to wish you all a pleasant day and talk to you all tomorrow. Bye.